Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services here this afternoon, we would kindly ask if everyone would please turn off or silence all electronic devices. And we're going to begin our services here today with a tribute from the Oddfellows.
My brothers and sisters, we have assembled to perform the last service the living can render to the departed, to pay respect to one to whom we were bound by the claims of sincere friendship, unfeigned love, and simple truth. The one who was born as we were born, who lived as we now live, and who for many days enjoyed his possessions, his power, and his hardships and friendships. When we laid to rest his earthly remains with its imperfections, we will cherish a lively recollection of his virtues.
Let us pray our Father, in this hour of sorrow, we turn to thee for help. Thou gavest life, thou hast received us into thyself yet. May the lesson of this hour sink deep into our hearts and purify them. May friendship and love take union in our lives, and may the truth guide us by the righteousness to thee. Comfort all whose hearts are made lonely at this hour. Assure them of thy presence, and in their sorrow, teach them to know thou hast received the spirit of their loved one, thyself again. Amen.
As a token that the virtues of our brother will dwell greenly in our memories, we deposit this evergreen upon his casket. Farewell, brother, until we meet thee in the eternal home. The International Order of Oddfellows is a non-sectarian, non-political fraternal organization founded in the United States in 1819. Presidents U.S. Grant, Rutherford Hayes, Warren Harding, William McKinley, and Franklin Roosevelt are members. The Oddfellows' duties are to visit the sick, relieve the distressed, educate the orphan, and bury the dead. We are here today to fulfill our responsibility for Brother Don Lapinson. The Oddfellows were a very important part of Don's life. He joined Menorah Lodge number 144 in 1967, where he became a past gram. He became a member of Bridesburg Menorah Lodge through consolidation, and finally a member of Variety Lodge number 37 in 1988. He was also a former patriarch of Kensington and Canton.
I would also like to say that at a time when lodge membership is dwindling, not very many people want to, Don had this organization run through his blood, and he never let us forget how important it was to him, and how much this organization and the camaraderie shaped his life through all his successes. I met Don through my dad. I'm the only multi-generational one in the family, and he was a wonderful man who lit this organization, just embodied what this organization is about, which is friendship, love, and truth.
The Independent Order of Oddfellows Fraternal Organization. It does a lot of charity work and friendship, and the organization to look into IOOF.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
We'll miss you.
To all gathered today, welcome. Loving, kind, friendly, funny, honest to a fault, helpful, a man of integrity, and a man of his word. These are the words in quote that Donald Lapinson of blessed memory's sister Marcy raised up to describe her brother. These qualities and others were echoed by the members of the family who I met with shortly after Don's death to learn about the man that he was. You see, unlike so many of you, I did not know Don in life, but spending time with his loving wife, Bobby, and his children and his grandchildren, I came to understand the deep love that he had for them and how he was, as his daughter Pamela said, a great role model for generations of this family. Don was, as I came to understand, a loving big brother, little brother, husband, father, Zadie, businessman, fisherman, and by all accounts, the mayor of the Atlantic City Boardwalk for a time. Don started his company, Lapinson Supply, when he was just 21 years old. I learned that he didn't go to college, but he built a life through hard work and sheer grit. It was explained to me that he worked nonstop, late into the evening most days. And when he had a day off, he did his most joyful thing. He went fishing. He was also an active volunteer, becoming a leader in the Oddfellows, who you just heard from, and as well as Brith Shalom. While through tears, his daughter Pamela shared that she knew this was a trade-off that he made, being away from family so much in order to provide for them. His son Paul highlighted that when it was time for Don to retire, he retired. He decided when he was done, he was really done. It took how long to clean out his desk? 10 months, you said, to come back and do it? Right. And that was that. And from that point forward, he was all in on the relationships with his family. Trips to Aruba, time in Atlantic City and Florida. During his retirement, I learned that he would go around his senior development in Florida and be Mr. Fix-It for all of the widows in the neighborhood. He was not one to sit still. I did learn, too, that when Paul was there to visit, Don would get a break and would make Paul do all of the assignments for the people in the neighborhood. Don was, as I learned, a firm believer in the adage that gets attributed to Benjamin Franklin, that a penny saved is a penny earned. He was, you're laughing, you know, how we say, judicious with his spending choices. For example, his brother-in-law, Jeff, told me about how once they were all in the car together and he discovered that they weren't going to make it in time to a restaurant for the early bird special. And he said, "We're going home. We're turning the car around. Forget it. We will make something from the cupboard." He was someone who was not afraid, as I learned, to show affection either, something that his grandchildren shared about. They reflected on great memories with him in his home away from home in Aruba. I learned that he never wanted to be a burden on his grandchildren, and they, in turn, have many fond memories of him. They shared that his strong sense of morality made him a great role model for the family. So, again, I didn't know him in life, and you're going to hear from those who did more intimately about the man that he was, but we gather today to honor the life and celebrate the memory and mourn the loss of Donald Lapinson, David Moshe ben Menachem Mendel Chaim Halevi, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory. My name is Rabbi Nathan Weiner. I'm a rabbi locally here in southern New Jersey, and it's an honor on behalf of myself, my family, the folks here at the funeral home, whom I learned you provide toilet paper and paper supplies and have for quite a long time. Thank the Lapinsons for your paper towels when you use the bathroom. I lost my spot with that. It's an honor to be present with all of you here today. So to those gathered in the chapel, welcome. And to those gathered on the live stream watching, particularly Don's sister and brother-in-law, Marcy and Jeff, welcome. Your presence is felt here in the chapel. It's as though you are here with us. Don is predeceased by his brother Joe, Joseph Lapinson, and his parents Manny and Sylvia, all of blessed memory. He's survived by his wife Bobby, whom I was told he said he would marry after their first date because she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. He's further survived by his sister Marcy and her husband Jeff, his children Paul and his fiancée Michelle, Pamela and her boyfriend John, his grandchildren Joshua and his boyfriend Michael, Vicky and Melanie. And of course, I'd be remiss not to mention his ultimate pride and joy, Louie the dog. I pray I got every name correct. Good. May your love and support for one another, God willing, carry you through and be a rock and a support for you as you navigate this difficult loss and transition. So our Jewish tradition teaches that while the physical body is temporary, the soul is eternal. So today we gather for sacred purpose to pray for full and complete rest for Don's body, and we believe that his soul remains bound in the bond of life to each of you, and we seek blessings for the continued elevation of his soul. May our time together have purpose and deep meaning, and may it honor well Don's memory. I'm now going to recite Psalm 23, a psalm used universally across the Abrahamic faith traditions at moments of loss and grief. I'm going to read it first in the Hebrew, followed by a standard translation in the English. If you're comfortable and would like to in either language and all or in part join with me, you're welcome to do so. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo achzar, bin oteshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenahaleni, nafshi yeshoveh v'encheni b'maglei tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech bogetz al mavet lo irara ki atayim adi, shivtecha al mishantecha hema yenachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zorai, tishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti v'vet Adonai le'orech yamim. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen v'amen. From Kohelet, Ecclesiastes chapter 3. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what has been planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time for speaking. We've arrived at a time for speaking, as many who knew Don in life have prepared words of a eulogy or a hesped to share in his memory. There are a number of speakers, and I'm going to be brazen and take a liberty and ask that you be mindful of the time that you take as you speak, as we approach Shabbat and have a long processional to go to the Jewish cemetery in PA and then back. So be mindful of that as you speak, but we look forward to hearing from a number of people. First, his dear friend, Michael Marks. Yes, please come on up and around.
This is a difficult day for me, for all of us, but it's a celebration of life. See if I can get through this. I was warned by Bobby. She said, we got a tough time frame, and it's like 3 minutes to talk. I know Donnie for 75 years. It's 180 seconds to get through a lifetime. Well, it's going to be a little disjointed, to say the least, but first of all, Bobby, Paul, Jay, Pamela, Simply. You know how I feel. I see Bobby's smile in this room, Donnie's smile in this room. He had the biggest smile in the whole world. And this is a celebration of what he was. Donnie and I got together in kindergarten. That's for real. I remember cots for nap time and little cardboard containers of milk. And that began a lifetime of hugs and very corny jokes. We all know about Donnie's corny jokes. You had to laugh, otherwise you were in trouble. I'm going to have to skip around here because I got so much to cover and no time to do it. So I will tell you that you're going to hear Don referred to as Don or Donald the rest of the day. I called him Donnie. That's what I know him. He was Donnie. I was Mike. I didn't like the word Mike, really. It came from two people I've accepted, Donnie and my mother. Otherwise, that's how we knew each other. We found out several years later we were actually related through marriage. His aunt married my uncle. I guess that makes us fourth cousins removed 3 times or something. But we always laughed about the fact that we were related. We had a brotherhood. There's no question about it. We got into anything and everything you could imagine. I could tell you hours and hours of stories, especially fishing stories. I learned that I was supposed to learn to fish because of Donnie. We spent many, many great days with Donnie and his dad. But I flew in last night, and I have a new Jeopardy question, I realized as I was driving over here to New Jersey. And that Jeopardy question is, what does Donnie and I, what do we have in common? The answer to the question is the Tacony Palmyra Bridge, because we use that bridge all the time. We would get in on our bikes early in the morning on a Saturday, and we would drive to the Delaware River or some creek or somewhere, and we would always catch eels. That was his specialty. Mine was seabird or sea robins. And we did some crazy things. I could tell you some stories, some of them maybe not safe for work, but we had a good time. And there's nobody in this room that can say that they know Donnie longer than I do. And he was a brother. That was a great honor in my life. We were in the Civil Air Patrol together. And the Civil Air Patrol was the Civil Air Patrol. And I want you to know that under our watch, Donnie was a ranger. I was a drill team member. We didn't lose 1 square inch of land to the enemy in Northeast Philadelphia for like 3 years. We went to every single Jewish synagogue dance on Saturday nights that we could find, never went in. We would stand outside in the freezing cold, and we would check out who was going in. It was really important that, well, let's see. Well, she was kind of short. Now she's kind of tall. Her hair's a little short. I really don't like this, the outfit she's wearing. It was 50 cents to get in. I think that was the real big deal. We didn't want to. And Donnie, as the rabbi said, certainly knew how to squeeze a buffalo until that buffalo was discomforting. We did some things where life was an adventure with Donald. Donnie made it fun to go buy a gallon of gas. Donnie said to me, he'd say at 9 o'clock at night, let's go buy some gas. And we'd just gotten our license. I said, Donnie, it's 9 o'clock. No, I found this great gas station in New Jersey, and it's 12.9 cents a gallon. I said, do we have to do this? He says, 12.9 cents a gallon. Forget about the nickel or 10-cent toll. So we got an adventure, bought gas. Donnie would say to me, I feel like a hamburger. Let's go to Jersey. Donnie, Why do we have to go to Jersey for a hamburger? This is before the Golden Arches, believe it or not. And he would say, oh, there's this place called Gino's, and they have these 15-cent hamburgers. And that included the bun and the patty. So I'd say, Donnie, do we have to? Yeah, of course we got to do it. So we'd go to Jersey, again, to Coney Palmyra Bridge. That was the link we seemed to have with the world. We did some amazing things. We did everything from rallies to sports car rallies to skiing. We learned to ski together, or I should say fall down a hill together, because there was a place outside of Doylestown called Piper Hill, and they had the best deal of the century. For $4 or $5, you got a lesson, rental equipment, which was wooden skis, and the lesson was with a drunken Austrian ski instructor who spoke no English. And they had this little rope tow thing. And so for $5, you got all of that. Well, you had to ski down the hill to get up the hill. Well, that was a whole other thing. And I don't know if either one of us ever made it the first night, but we'd go there a couple times a week during the winter because it was just fun. We actually graduated to the mountains of the Poconos or the Catskills in New York and did some traveling with our skiing. But believe it or not, Donnie was a skier. Donnie was the 4-H club of himself. He had a heart of gold. He was the hardest working person I've ever met in my life. He was handsome. He always worked. I mean, I was one of Donnie's very first business partners. We were in the peach basket business for the Mummers Day Parade. Of course, it was illegal at the time. We didn't know that. And we went down and bought the peach baskets, like 50 cents a piece or something. We're going to sell them for $1, not until the the Philadelphia police said, no, can't do that. Get out of here, take your peach baskets. So we lost about $10, and that was Donnie's first business venture. He graduated to the front lawn of his house, his parents' house, where he would put used cars on the lawn. Remember that? Used cars on the lawn, on the sidewalk, on the street. He always had 6 cars in front of the house, and he had a heck of a business going, selling used cars from the front of the house. Donnie was always working. He would fill in for his father on weekends at the Columbus Market. He would fill in for his father in afternoons after school at the Columbus Market. Anytime I say to Donnie, hey, let's go do this or do that, I can't tonight because I'm working for my dad. Amazing son, amazing friend, amazing brother. And thank you for this privilege.
His nephew David.
Hello, everyone. Donald Michael Lapinson is a man that I am grateful to have had as my uncle. I loved and will always love him wholeheartedly. I feel lucky to have been born into the Lapinson family, our boisterous, loud, opinionated, beautiful family. A tremendous bubble of love that I now see in this world a rarity. And I could not have chosen better. To be raised by such love is a gift that I thank the universe for daily. My uncle made his way in this world by pounding the pavement, scrimping and saving, allowing him to create his empire. Some said through the course of his lifetime that he was a monetarily frugal man. But if you were lucky enough to stand in his heart, you knew infinite riches and infinite love. I would choose this over money time and again. I had the pleasure of spending a summer at my aunt and uncle's Ventnor home. Uncle Don would take us out on the boat fishing. During this time, I saw a man who was free. He loved to be on the water. He was at peace. It was as if the sea took whatever might have been going on at the moment, just allowing him to be happy. I stand here before you today a bit broken, but grateful to have had the pleasure of knowing a man who loved to tell dirty jokes, loved his family, and cherished his friends. Thank you, Uncle Don, for loving, sharing, and being yourself. Thank you.
And now, coming up together, I invite his grandchildren to share some words.
I'm Josh. I am our Zadie's favorite grandson.
I'm Victoria.
Melanie.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I really appreciate it. My grandfather was very clear in his final years about how he wanted to be remembered, especially by us, his grandchildren, who will be carrying that memory the longest. During one conversation, asking him directly about this, he told me it was really important that he is remembered as a mensch, which in Yiddish, of course, translates to a good person, a good man. And as hard as I try to say that, to say he was a mensch, that word doesn't fit for me. I don't see him as a mensch. He's just my grandfather. He's just my Zadie. And as my brother would say, Zadie's smile could light up a room, at least when he had his good dentures in, of course. And that's true. He took great pride in his dentures and the deal that he got on them as well. And he loved to smile. He put those things to work, had to get his money's worth, of course. He smiled at friends and strangers alike, and that smile helped him form countless friendships and maintain lasting relationships, which brings us all here today. He was a master storyteller, a trait that I hope I've picked up a fraction of. But he shared many tales of his childhood and adventures as a businessman and father and all those things. One of my favorite stories, which we've just had recounted to us, but I'll reiterate, was the peach crates story. And he told me about how he grew up with this fierce determination to become wealthy. He wanted to create a life for his children and his grandchildren that, would be quite positive and fruitful. And he and his friend, who's also here with us today, bought these peach crates in order to sell them at the parade after they'd seen it at a prior parade. And when they got there, they found that their plans were foiled, no peach crates at the parade, which was his first failure in business. But this did not whatsoever deter him from his goal. Because we're all here today, we are the evidence of that. We are the evidence that he persisted. He never gave up on his dreams, and he worked tirelessly to create a better life for his children and his grandchildren. And we'll remember him for that, and for all of the lovely stories. We'll remember him for his hardworking nature, his humor, his friendliness, his generosity, and his quirks, most of all, like his love of diners. He loved diners, specifically Denny's, but all diners. And he had his favorite waitresses, his favorite meals, and he insisted that his soups be served as hot as they could make them. So much so, and I wrote this in quotes, so hot they'll burn my tongue off, it was what he would say, absolutely. And if the soup wasn't hot enough, not a soul on earth could stop that man from sending it back to the kitchen to be put in the microwave. We knew that, certainly. He was very resourceful. He also paid for those diner meals with gift cards that he bought himself, because the more gift cards you get a bonus, Had to throw that in there, but. We won't forget his yellow Corvettes, the number of them, yellow Hummer, all his yellow cars, the color yellow. And every so often, because they're rare to see, when I see a yellow Corvette, I think of him. And I think about the time that he was kind enough to let me drive one, which I enjoyed, and, all went well. And when he let my brother drive one, resulting in him rolling through his stop sign, which I wasn't supposed to say, but we're saying it. We are so fortunate to have had him in our lives for so long. We have memories from Cherry Hill, Atlantic City, Boynton Beach, Aruba, and other places. It wasn't just a title for him, being a Zadie. It was a defining part of who he was. He lived a long and impactful life to so many people. A life from peach crates to Corvettes. And I would like everyone here to, if you can, please remember him as a mensch. Because for me, it's just Zadie. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that my grandpa was the best Zadie ever, and he's a great person, and I just want all of you to keep him in your prayers because I know he's safe, but just please keep him in your prayers, and it's an honor to have all you guys here. You guys are all amazing, and I'm so grateful. You guys are in my life and my Zadie's life, so thank you so much.
And Paul.
My father was a natural public speaker, kind of like Captain America. He just rolled something off great, right off the cuff. It skipped me. It obviously went to to my children, his grandkids. Yo fish. I want to know who went fishing with him. That was science. That was my father's science. You had to yell yo fish, and when you yelled yo fish, the fish came coming. Though I could say with my friends, never caught a fish after that. Maybe they were waiting. We'll see. I want to mention everything he taught me. Working for him, I learned more than anything I learned in college and high school. He was a natural businessman, always win-win. He taught me how to be. We're humble, how to support people, how to create other leaders. To being a leader is about creating new leaders. I'll just go into stories. I want to save time. I know we're coming in here. So an early memory was coming to the warehouse, and he's talking to somebody on the phone. And this guy's trying to sell him his 911, Porsche 911. So I'm all excited. You got to get this 911, Dad. And he's telling him, it's a lot of money. Just sell it yourself. So I put it in the Inquirer. And this guy's telling me, no, I can't put it in the Inquirer. He's like, why can't you? Everybody put it in the Inquirer. There's no rules. Everybody puts it in the Inquirer. He's like, listen, I'm Doug Collins. I can't put it in the Inquirer. And I hear that, and my father goes, well, I don't care who you are. I'm Don Lapinson, and I can put an ad in the paper. You can put an ad in the paper. We ended up getting the car from Doug Collins, and it was cool going to his house, and it was amazing. When he retired, we talked about, it was mentioned earlier by the rabbi, my father said he was retiring, and I didn't believe him. My father worked too hard. He was never going to quit. The day he quit, or the day he retired, not quitting, next morning I expected him in, 9 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock goes by. I call him on his cell, where he at? He's like, I'm in West Virginia. I'm like, what are you doing in West Virginia? He's like, I'm retired. I'm going to Branson, Missouri, because Branson, Missouri is where retired people go. And Branson happened to be one of his favorite places to go. That, Aruba, obviously, Vegas, Florida. I mean, I remember going to the Catskills with the lodge. We had a great time. When it came to the car business, he was the diesel king. I don't know how many of you got one of his 80s diesels, but yeah, those diesels, it brings out a memory. My favorite vacation, Pam and I and my mother drove across country in his 1980 diesel Tornado. It's a two-door, and Pam and I were in the back seat with nothing but the toys from Kitty City, a couple little plastic toys, Mad Libs, and that was it. And we had to listen to his music, Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton, and Hank Williams, and him singing, hey, what you got, hey, good looking, what you got cooking? I hear that over and over in my head. That was his favorite song. And everybody knew my father, and like wherever I went, people knew him. In 1990, we were up in the Poconos, and my father gave me a car to use, an old Chrysler convertible, and I get on the Northeast Extension, and about a mile down the road, smoke comes out of the engine, breaks down, catches fire. I put the fire out, and this is before cell phones, so I'm stranded. He's got a tow truck, but I have to find a way of getting somebody to call. So at that time, only the rich people had the cell phone, so you had to find a car that had those curly antennas on them. So here I am, 19 years old, and I'm looking for a car to come by. So I see a Saab. I wave the Saab down. He pulls over, and I said, listen, I need to call. I got to call my father. He's got a tow truck. He'll come and pick me up. I'll give you $5 for the phone call. He's like, no, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I call him up, and I'm talking to my father, and I'm telling him where I'm at. And he keeps looking at me. He's like, where are you from? And I'm like, Cherry Hill. And he's looking at me. He's like, are you related to Don Lapinson? This was a random guy that I waved down, and he ended up taking me home, and he was my father's lodge, knew my father, lived around the corner. Just amazing how I could be up in the middle of the Northeast Extension, and somebody would know my father. Just looking at my little notes. He loved the fishing. My friends had to go fishing, but we had a job. We always had to clean the boat afterwards. He always gave my friends jobs. One of them was cleaning the jacuzzi in our backyard in Ventnor. And we were not doing it his way. We were a little slow, so he came out, and he was trying to show us up. And he grabbed that bucket. He scooped the water up, and he went like this, and that whole bucket dropped all over his head. And my friends, Drew's right here, and I could see him cracking up because we were I was afraid to laugh, but it was funny. And he just stood there, and he was just like, go ahead, let me have it. He doesn't mind being the butt of a joke. Let me see what else we got. There's stories. We can talk about them tonight, tomorrow. He was the guy that everybody knew, and he was always the guy that everybody would call when he had. He knew a guy. He was the guy who knew a guy and took care of everything. Whatever you had, it was always, you were a stranger, he would go out of his way to help you. That's just the person he was. He taught me everything I am. Everything I am today is because of him. I'm my father's son. I'm taking off this. This is just really quick. I was flying back from Hawaii on Sunday night to Monday. When we got off the plane, when we landed, my phone started going off. It was text from my mother and my Aunt Judy and Marty, and please call, please call, please call. I didn't see a message from him. I knew. We got off the plane. I made arrangements to go and divert and fly to Florida, pick up my mom. And we were sitting there, and we always, when somebody passes, you always look for those signs. And Michelle and Casey, Vicky's friend, we're sitting there, and a little girl comes up in a wheelchair, and she was a Make-A-Wish kid. And her wish, she was getting on the next plane, her wish was to go to Rockefeller Center and see the Christmas tree, and everybody applauded, and they were talking about a speech, and then I don't know if she looked at me or what, and she says, we run this organization on donations and your points, and immediately I was like, what would Don do? What would my father do? So I went. Now, they saw me come off the plane, they knew I was upset, and I just said, listen, I'm not flying back, so you could take, if anybody's on standby, take my seat, but I would like to donate my points or whatever the credit is to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. It's something my father would do. And that's so sweet, and I gave her my ticket, and she looked at the ticket, and she says, well, it's really sweet of you, but you bought the blue value ticket. So we can't give anything. And I looked and she's like, but your father would be so proud. And I'm like, I think he might be more proud of that blue ticket that I bought, that I saved all this money. That was my father's son. Everybody said I look like him. It's the nicest thing they ever said about him. So just to close up, I think he's looking down. He's happy. He had a great life. As much as I said it, he went the way he wanted to go. He accomplished everything. When he had a heart attack years ago, he told me he's seen everything. He's got his grandkids. He's seen us grow up. He was proud. This is a celebration. I mean, it's sad we're going to miss him, but this is a celebration. And, right now I know he's sitting in his Scarab Super Sport, up, looking down on us with fishing rod in his hand. So I would like if everybody would do me a favor, and on the count of 3, and yell, "Yo, fish." Give him a little boost up there. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Yo, fish! Thank you. Thank you.
See, I'm a car guy, too. I've heard about those Oldsmobile diesels. Oof. And lastly, to share some words, his dear friend, Marty.
As Paul said, not accustomed to public speaking is a lie. We're here today to honor a special person, to celebrate a life of my best friend, Donald Lapinson. His wife, children, grandchildren, and a very, very large extended family. Yes, Bobby, we can talk about the earrings later. Diamond earrings. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed a word. Donald was a simple man and very complicated at the same time. Kind-hearted, loving, caring, intense love of family and friends. You may ask, how did I meet Donald? There's a story. A mutual friend introduced us. And the rest of that journey is over 45 years long. And if you want the details, ask me later. We were out to dinner at a restaurant in Cherry Hill on Route 70 called Caesar's. There are 6 of us at our table and this other table of nice people, not knowing anybody. Donald looks at him and says, "Do you know Bennett Goldstein, who owns the funeral parlor in Philadelphia?" Donald says, "Let me introduce you to Bennett Goldstein." And he introduced me to these people as Bennett Goldstein. So all I did was, for the next 15 or 20 minutes, explain to him the intricate workings of a funeral parlor, the embalming methods, what they can do, where they can go, and if they would like to, I don't have any cards with me, just tell them, Bennett said, we'll give you a tour of our facility, and it's my pleasure to meet you. And we paid our check and left. Cars. I think there's a number of people here who are a recipient of Donald's cars. Good, bad, ugly. My daughter personally went with Donald to buy a car, my oldest daughter. She's at the auction. "That's the one, Uncle Don." Okay. He bids it, he wins. Somebody comes over and says, "I wanted that car. I'll give you a profit on the car." Donald said, "Fine." Now my daughter's hysterical. "What are you going to do to my car? What did you do?" "Fine." Donald says, "Don't worry about it." 10 minutes later, she had another car. Travel, trips, cruises, Catskills. We did a lot of traveling together. Vegas. We went to Vegas. We went into an elevator. Donald was pushing my friend Harvey in a wheelchair. And this gentleman is standing there, a security guard, rather tall, 17-inch biceps, almost ripping his shirt. And I look at the gentleman, and I look at Donald, and I look at the gentleman, and I look at Donald, and I say, I cannot believe what that man just said about your mother. Fishing trips. He knew I didn't fish, but I could drive the boat, and always asked me to go so he could fish, and I did. Early when we first met, we came back to Donald's house, and the family car was gone. Yes, gone. In a short while, we knew who was making use of it. Pam! As I recall, and this is the one time he did not raise his voice, all he said was, we will talk about it in the morning. And Pam went to bed shivering. And here we are today to pay tribute and honor my friend Donald Lapinson. He told me, don't be sad of my passing. He's had a good life. To honor his memory and recall your personal experiences, talk about them. Tell people about them. I have. Oh, one thing I forgot. Donald was in the paper business. Whenever there was a shiva, Donald was gracious enough to supply everything that you needed for the shiva. Paper towels, toilet paper, plates, cups. And yes, that is his last giving event at our house. We have Donald Lapinson shiva supplies. I thank you. A great man, a great family man who will be missed. My friend, Donald.
It's with these beautiful thoughts, memories, and dedications in mind that we move to the central prayer of a Jewish funeral service, El Malei Rachamim, that asks, as we prepare to inter Don's body at the cemetery shortly, that his soul be granted true rest on the wings of God's divine presence. If it's comfortable physically for you to do so, I invite you to please rise. I'll read it first in the English translation, followed by chanting in the Hebrew. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant true rest upon the wings of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, in the exalted spheres of the holy and pure, who shine as a resplendence of the firmament to the soul of Donald Lapinson, who has gone to his eternal home. For charity has been donated in remembrance of his soul. May his place of rest be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, may the All-Merciful One shelter him with the cover of God's wings forever, and bind his soul in the bond of life. Adonai is his heritage. May he rest in his resting place in peace, and let us say, Amen. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Tehorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat David Moshe ben Menachem Mendel Chaim Halevi, Shehalach Le'olamo, Ba'avor Shenadvu Tzadaka Ba'ad Hazkarat Nishmato, Began Eden Tehe Menuchato, Lachen Bal HaRachamim Yastirehu B'Seter Kenafav Le'olamim, V'yitzror B'yitzror HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'yanuach Al Mishkavo B'Shalom, Vinomar, Amen. Please be seated. Our time together here at the chapel is drawing to a close. A few notes. Following interment, which will happen shortly as we go in processional to Shalom Memorial Park, following interment, friends are welcome back at the home of Marty Shakin, where I hear the paper supplies have been provided. at 1702 Country Club in Cherry Hill, at 1702 Country Club Drive, Country Club Drive, thank you. For donations, I was told that Don would have told you to just keep your money, but with some coaxing, the family asks that donations in lieu of flowers please be made to Hadassah, a charity that Don's mother held close to her heart.